Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria, was born on December 1st, 1949, in the small town of Rio Negro, Antioquia, Colombia. Escobar came from a modest family. His father, Abel de Jesus Escobar Echeverri, was a farmer, and his mother, Hermilda de los Dolores Gaviria Berrio, was an elementary school teacher. The family later moved to Medellín, where Escobar grew up and was exposed to the realities of poverty and inequality that shaped his future criminal endeavors. Despite their financial hardships, the Escobar family was deeply religious and devout. Pablo's mother hoped for him to pursue a more conventional career, possibly in education or farming, following in their family's footsteps. However, Escobar's ambition exceeded the bounds of a small-town life. His early exposure to street life in Medellín marked the beginning of his journey into crime. Escobar was described as intelligent and charismatic. However, his insatiable desire for wealth and power would soon lead him down a dark path. The harsh realities of his environment and his acute awareness of socio-economic disparities drove him to seek ways to accumulate power and wealth, even if it meant resorting to illegal activities. Growing up in Medellín, Escobar was quickly drawn to the streets. The city, plagued by poverty and violence, presented Escobar with a multitude of opportunities to get involved in petty crimes. He dropped out of school early, preferring to spend his time hustling on the streets. Escobar's formative years in Medellín allowed him to witness the struggles of the working class and the wealth disparity that existed in Colombia at the time. This environment fostered a sense of resentment toward the established systems of power and governance, sowing the seeds of rebellion. At a young age, Escobar started engaging in small-time criminal activities, including car theft and contraband trading. He was known to steal gravestones, remove the inscriptions, and resell them to smugglers. His cleverness and ambition set him apart from other petty criminals in Medellín. This early period gave Escobar the foundation he needed to understand the mechanics of Medellín's criminal underworld, which he would later dominate. Escobar's first significant crime came when he began trafficking stolen cars and later marijuana. However, it wasn't until the early 1970s that he would engage in the cocaine trade, which would ultimately define his criminal career. Colombia had become a central hub for cocaine production due to its location and economic circumstances, and Escobar recognized this growing opportunity. In the early days of his involvement in the drug trade, Escobar worked as a middleman between coca farmers and traffickers. He quickly realized the immense profit potential of the cocaine business, and by the mid-1970s, he had built his own distribution network. His ability to organize, manipulate, and outsmart competitors set him apart from others in the burgeoning cocaine trade. Escobar's first major shipment of cocaine into the United States marked the beginning of his meteoric rise. His ambitions knew no bounds, and he understood that to maintain control of this rapidly growing empire, he would have to eliminate competition ruthlessly. By the late 1970s, Escobar had positioned himself as one of the most powerful drug traffickers in the world. The Medellín Cartel, which he led, controlled a significant portion of the cocaine entering the United States. At the height of his power, Escobar's cartel was responsible for smuggling 80% of the world's cocaine, bringing in an estimated $420 million a week. This immense wealth allowed Escobar to exert unprecedented control over both the drug trade and Colombian society. Escobar's rise to power was marked by a combination of violent tactics and populist strategies. He portrayed himself as a Robin Hood figure, using his wealth to build hospitals, schools, and housing for the poor in Medellín. He gained a loyal following among the local population, who viewed him as a benefactor. This dual persona allowed Escobar to create a vast network of informants, supporters, and enforcers who helped protect him from law enforcement. However, Escobar's philanthropy was a mere facade for his violent and criminal behavior. He operated with an iron fist, employing a strategy of plata o plomo, silver or lead, which gave people the choice between accepting a bribe or facing death. This method ensured that politicians, law enforcement, and the judiciary were either complicit in his operations or lived in constant fear of retribution. Escobar's modus operandi was characterized by both brutal violence and strategic diplomacy. He employed a combination of bribery, intimidation, and murder to control every aspect of his business. His influence extended not only to the Colombian government, but also to the United States and other international law enforcement agencies. One of Escobar's key strategies was his sophisticated smuggling operations. The Medellín Cartel used a variety of methods to transport cocaine, including airplanes, boats, and submarines. Escobar even established his own fleet of aircraft, including a Learjet, to move vast quantities of cocaine across borders. These operations were supported by an army of loyalists who ensured that shipments arrived safely and undetected. Escobar's wealth allowed him to bribe high-ranking officials, judges, and even military personnel to turn a blind eye to his activities. He had an intricate network of money launderers who helped move billions of dollars into legitimate businesses and offshore accounts. At the height of his power, Escobar's cartel was reportedly spending $2,500 a month just on rubber bands to hold the stacks of cash they were making. Escobar also established complex routes and connections with other criminal organizations around the globe. He partnered with cartels in Mexico and other parts of South America, and his cocaine empire reached Europe, Asia, and even Africa. His business acumen and ruthlessness allowed him to operate as one of the wealthiest criminals in modern history. Escobar's reign of terror was marked by countless incidents of violence and bloodshed. His ruthlessness knew no bounds, and anyone who stood in his way was quickly eliminated. The Medellín Cartel's operations led to the deaths of thousands of people, including civilians, police officers, judges, and politicians. One of the most infamous incidents attributed to Escobar was the 1989 bombing of Avianca Flight 203, which killed 110 people. Escobar had targeted the plane in an attempt to assassinate César Gaviria, a Colombian presidential candidate who had taken a hardline stance against the cartel. While Gaviria was not on the flight, the bombing shocked the world and marked a turning point in the Colombian government's efforts to capture Escobar. Escobar also ordered the assassination of Colombian Justice Minister Rodrigo Lara Bonilla in 1984, after Bonilla had begun a campaign to dismantle the Medellín Cartel. This murder sparked a war between Escobar and the Colombian government, leading to the United States becoming more involved in the fight against Escobar and his associates. In 1991, after years of eluding law enforcement, Escobar surrendered to Colombian authorities under the condition that he would be allowed to serve his sentence in a self-designed prison known as La Catedral. This luxurious facility, located near Medellín, was equipped with every comfort Escobar could desire, including a nightclub, a jacuzzi, and a soccer field. La Catedral became a symbol of Escobar's power and the corruption that had enabled his criminal empire to flourish. However, Escobar's incarceration at La Catedral was short-lived. In 1992, after it became clear that he was still running the Medellín Cartel from inside the prison, the Colombian government attempted to transfer him to a more secure facility. Escobar escaped before the transfer could take place, marking the beginning of a massive manhunt. For over a year, Escobar evaded capture by moving between safe houses and relying on his vast network of loyalists to protect him. During this time, he continued to orchestrate cartel operations, and violence in Colombia escalated. The United States, which had been working closely with the Colombian government to bring Escobar to justice, increased its efforts to track him down. Throughout his career, Escobar maintained a complex public persona. To his supporters, he was a hero who had lifted them out of poverty. To his enemies, he was a ruthless killer who brought death and destruction to Colombia. Escobar rarely gave interviews, preferring to maintain a certain level of mystery about his life and operations. However, his reputation as a larger-than-life figure only grew with time. One of the few recorded interviews Escobar gave was with a local journalist in the 1980s, where he portrayed himself as a man who was simply responding to the circumstances of his country. He claimed to be a patriot who had built schools and hospitals and who had no choice but to fight against a corrupt government. Escobar's ability to manipulate public perception played a crucial role in his ability to maintain control over Medellín and other parts of Colombia. The media also played a significant role in building the legend of Pablo Escobar. News outlets from around the world covered his criminal activities, his escapes, and the violent clashes between his cartel and the Colombian government. Escobar's life became a topic of fascination, both in Colombia and internationally. His story, a blend of extreme wealth, power, and violence, captured the imagination of people across the globe. In some circles, Escobar became a symbol of anti-establishment rebellion, while in others, he was seen as the embodiment of criminality and destruction. Escobar's downfall began in earnest after his escape from La Catedral in 1992. The Colombian government, with substantial assistance from the United States, initiated one of the most extensive manhunts in history. The hunt for Escobar involved elite units from the Colombian National Police, specialized intelligence operatives, and the notorious Search Bloc, Bloc de Búsqueda, a task force specifically designed to capture or kill Escobar. In addition to the efforts of the government and law enforcement, Escobar faced growing opposition from rival cartels and vigilante groups. Chief among these groups was Los Pepes, people persecuted by Pablo Escobar, a coalition of former associates, enemies, and vigilantes, including members of the Cali cartel, who sought revenge for the terror Escobar had inflicted on them. Los Pepes waged their own war against Escobar, systematically dismantling his network, killing his associates, and exposing his safe houses. Their violent campaign complemented the official manhunt and eroded Escobar's power and influence. As Escobar's resources dwindled and his network of protectors crumbled, he became increasingly isolated. His family, including his wife Maria Victoria and his 2 children, were placed under government protection and eventually moved to a safe location abroad. With no way to escape, Escobar was forced to remain on the run, constantly moving between safe houses in Medellín. The final chapter of Escobar's life came to a close on December 2, 1993. After 16 months of evasion, Escobar was located in a modest house in a middle-class neighborhood of Medellín. Intelligence operatives had intercepted a call Escobar made to his family, pinpointing his location. Colombian authorities, along with the search bloc, moved in swiftly. A firefight ensued when Escobar attempted to flee across the rooftops. After exchanging gunfire with police, Escobar was shot and killed. The exact details of his death remain a subject of controversy, as some believe he may have committed suicide to avoid capture, while others maintain that he was fatally shot by police. Regardless of the circumstances, the death of Pablo Escobar marked the end of a bloody chapter in Colombia's history. Pablo Escobar's death sent shockwaves through Colombia and the world. His demise brought an end to the Medellín Cartel, which quickly fragmented and lost its grip on the global cocaine trade. Rival cartels, such as the Cali cartel, briefly took over the cocaine business, but they too would eventually fall as law enforcement efforts intensified. For Colombia, Escobar's death symbolized a turning point. The country, which had been ravaged by violence, kidnappings, and bombings during the peak of Escobar's power, began a slow recovery. However, the scars left by Escobar's reign were deep. Thousands of lives had been lost, and entire communities had been devastated by the cartel's activities. Escobar's legacy is complex and multifaceted. On one hand, he is remembered as a ruthless drug lord responsible for countless deaths and acts of terror. His criminal empire brought untold suffering to the people of Colombia and fueled the global drug trade. contributing to addiction and violence worldwide. The sheer scale of his operation and the level of violence he unleashed are unparalleled in modern criminal history. On the other hand, Escobar remains a folk hero to some in Medellín and other impoverished regions of Colombia. His efforts to provide housing, healthcare, and social services to the poor earned him a degree of loyalty and admiration that persists to this day. In some parts of Colombia, his name is still spoken with reverence, and his story continues to captivate the imagination of people around the world. Escobar's influence has permeated popular culture, with numerous books, films, and television shows chronicling his life. His rise and fall have been immortalized in series such as Narcos, where his persona is portrayed both as a menacing figure and a man of contradictions. The fascination with Escobar's life and legacy is likely to continue for years to come, as his story represents the collision of ambition, violence, and the human desire for power.